Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Stampin' Chat Live. I'm Gina from Gina K Designs, and it's great to see all of you coming in from all around the world. Tonight, I have a really fun technique for you, and this uses stencils. And maybe some of you didn't even know that you could do this with your stencils, but I've done it in the past, but it's been a long time, and we have so many new viewers. Plus, I'm going to take this up a notch and do something a little different than I did in the past. So I can't wait to show you tonight's technique. But before we get started, let's say hello to this way. There you go, Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hey.
How are you?
I am better than horrible still.
Okay, so
glad to have you all here.
We've got horrific smoke coming down from Canada right now.
Really?
Yes, and guess what? Really, you did. And guess what Tom did today? He rode his bike in to work in the smoke.
Boy, did I get scolded out on the floor.
Everybody yelled at him. All his work wives yelled at him today.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
You're not supposed to do that.
No.
Yeah, not tomorrow though. He's not going to do it tomorrow because I think we've got smoke coming down all the way through Thursday. So it's going to be a little bit cloudy and foggy around here.
It was a good ride.
You feel okay?
Yeah, I do.
Your eyes don't burn or anything?
No, not right now.
All right, good. No. Good, because you got to see all the gears and dials back there.
Yeah, I know. I'm fine.
You're the wizard back there.
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz. All right. Well, Tom's going to be back in a little while because I know he has a word of the day, right? You have to. It's Tuesday night.
I should have a word of the day.
Yes. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, I know a lot of you guys are dealing with smoke right now. We're thinking about all of you and hoping that crafting is your escape. Stay inside and make cards. You'll be fine. It's not going to last forever. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to tell you about tonight's video is to do these techniques, you can do them with all kinds of stencils, but I'm going to recommend that you try this technique for the first time with some stencils that are sort of like these, if you want to look at these. So I have Brick Wall, I have one called Leafy, and then I have Art Deco. And you can see that these are just patterns. Now, I'm not saying you can't do this with layering stencils, because you certainly can. And you can also do this with big floral stencils and bigger designs. But to start, give yourself a practice run with some kind of background stencil that's a little bit smaller. And I'm telling you, my favorite one is the Brick Wall followed by the Art Deco. I really loved what these did with this technique. Okay, so now many of you love embossing folders, and I love them too. But some of you may not know that you can emboss with your stencils. So if you've never tried to do this before, I'm going to show you how to emboss with your stencils. So let me get my die cutting machine. And this just takes your stencils up to a whole new level, because embossing folders are awesome, but stencils are so multi-purpose because you can do all of the beautiful stencil techniques, and then you can use these to emboss as well. So let's do that first. This isn't the technique though. I mean, it's part of the technique, so you have to know how to do this part. Now, if you're going to emboss and you're using a Spellbinders Platinum machine, what you want to do is you want to have your base plate, and then you want to have a rubber mat. This is the rubber mat by Spellbinders. And then I use the embossing plate. Now, every die cutting machine is different. So if you have an embossing feature on your die cutting machine, it will be in the instructions of your machine. And also, anytime that you want to emboss a die where you would use a rubber mat, you're going to kind of use the same sandwich for your embossing of a stencil. Okay. So what I like to do here, what do I have? I have some white cardstock, and let me get my tape. So I have some purple tape here, and I want to show you something that I'm going to do just to make this stay in place. So I'm going to cut 2 thin little strips of tape, and you can use any kind of tape, pixie tape, purple tape, washi tape, whatever you have. I actually like using pixie tape for this a little bit better because the purple tape does tear the paper a little more, but I've got some purple tape to use up, and since I am cutting some of this off anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. So on this particular stencil, I have a little bit of a wider margin down here at the bottom where the name of the stencil is. But like on a stencil like this, the Art Deco, I don't have much of a margin at all. It doesn't really matter. I like to use the full 6x6 to do the technique and then cut the size of the panel that I want for my card. So I'm going to make a little hinge here. So I'm just going to tape that on the top and over the side, over the top like this, and then just over like that. This way I've got like a little folder here. And this way, it's not that hard to line it up when you want to do some ink blending on it. But if you don't have to line it up again because you've added this and it's just going to fall right in the right place, it's kind of a little good habit to get into. Okay, now for my embossing folder, for my stencils, I like a little bit of a deeper emboss. So what I did was I cut an extra piece of 6x6 cardstock. This is a heavyweight cardstock, like 100-pound. This is our Barely There cardstock. And I'm just going to put that right over where you could see here where the paper is sticking out, right in the same area that's going to emboss, just to make it a little bit tighter. And then I'm going to run this through. Okay. All righty. Now, I kind of crinkled that up, but that's all right. Now let's take a look at that. Okay. Can you guys see? I can feel it. Can you guys see the embossed image there? Can they see that, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so you could see that you could emboss a brick wall. And I love that idea that you can emboss with these, but we're going to take it to the next level because we're going to do a few little inking techniques with this. Now you can see because I created that little hinge, it's just going back to the same spot that it was. And now you can use a stencil mat or whatever you want. I'm just going to use some cardstock here. And I am going to add some color onto this. Now I am going to tape this down so the whole thing stays on my paper. I'm glad you guys can see it. That's cool. Now that you can do that with any of your background stencils. So now you just increased all of your embossing folders by like 1,000,000, right? Because you have a bunch of background stencils and now you know that you can emboss with them. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of inking on here, but instead of using a blending brush, I'm going to do a direct to paper technique. So I'm going to start with some warm cocoa ink and I'm going to turn it sideways and I'm going to do a wood grain technique. So I'm going to wood grain over this. All right, but it's not going to look real wood grained. See, it's just kind of looking like just a little bit is getting in there, and that's what you want. You want it to look rough like that, okay? You can get a few different color ones in there. That's all right, because these are bricks. All right, so there's the first part, okay? Now I'm going to get a paper towel, and I'm just going to dab up some of this ink on the side here. All right. Now I'm going to go to my next color, which is going to be Faded Brick. Now I want to add a little bit of red in here because I want these to look like bricks. Okay, so I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to add a little bit of red in here. Can you see that red getting in there? This is not going to look like much until the very end, and you're going to see. Okay, we're just adding a little bit of brick in there over that warm cocoa. Get a little bit more in here. Okay. All right. So that might have been a little much, but that's all right. So now I've got some brick in there. Now I'm going to pull this whole stencil thing off, and we're going to add some more color. This is not going to look like anything. You're going to look at this and go, well, that doesn't look that great, Gina. And I will agree with you, because this part, when I first was trying some things with this, I thought, well, that looks stupid. I mean, it doesn't look bad. I guess it looks like really, really old brick, you know, that's kind of got a lot of white in it and stuff, but I don't think it looks like anything. I personally would not use this for anything. But here's where we're going to really soup it up. Now, because this is all embossed and you've got that texture that you can feel, now what we're going to do is we're going to use some, yes, you can use cubes, Brenda. Now we're going to go with some Kraft ink, and we're going to lightly rub over here to fill in the rest of the bricks. Now, do you see how these are starting to fill in a little bit? Now they're starting to look more like bricks, right? And this is filling in all of those areas, so it's adding more color in there. It's not catching in between the lines, but it's adding lots of color. And now it's starting to look like an old brick wall. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this even better. It's starting to look like an old brick wall. This looks like the brick in our basement, Tom.
It really does.
Yeah. But now I want to add something else to this. I want to add a little bit of ocean mist. And yeah, you could add it with a brayer, but I really love the roughness that the rubbing it, because it doesn't seep in and you still have a tiny bit of that white showing, which I really like. Now I'm going to add a little bit of ocean mist, but you definitely can use a brayer and that will give you a different look altogether. So give it a try and see which way you like it the best. Now I'm going to add a little bit of ocean mist very lightly to this. And this just kind of ages the bricks a little bit. Okay. Now we've got to give this a chance to dry, because you know our ink, when it dries up, it has a smoothing agent and it gets very, very different. So we're going to just let that dry for a few minutes. Isn't that so fun? Ah, I love that. That looks so different to me than just using the brick wall stencil. It just looks so different. It looks so realistic to me. Looks like real brick. Okay. The colors already on the paper will not ruin the ink pad. No, because our ink dries almost instantly. So, I mean, I could rub my hand all over that and I don't get any ink on me. It just seeps right into the paper. And because it's dye ink, it dries really fast. Now, I wouldn't add like pigment ink to this or anything like that, because you definitely want it to dry in between coats and you want to be able to get right at it. So doesn't that just make a huge difference when you add those colors? I love that. So then when you trim this down, and I'll trim it down right now, and by matching it up to the top, you know it's straight. So it's going to be easy to trim down. And I'm going to go right into that second brick there. And then I'm going to trim just a little off of the top bricks. I'm going to go right to that second brick. When I say second, I mean this one here, to cut off this white. And then I'll do just a little bit into that row of bricks. Doesn't that look like a brick wall? I love it. Okay, so that's the first technique, using this inking technique. That's the first thing that you can do. So we're going to save this because I'm going to make a card with the brick wall, and I'm going to do it like right at the very end, make a quick card. But I wanted to show you all the different ways that you can use this. Okay, so now I want to show you, I use the same exact colors here on this one with the Art Deco. So same faded brick, warm cocoa, Kraft on top, and a little bit of ocean mist. That's beautiful. Like, this to me looks like an old brick wall. This to me looks like a Victorian ceiling. I really love, or Victorian wallpaper, or maybe tile on a bathroom wall. So you can see how nice this is. Okay, but I want to show you something else that you can do to step this up a little bit more. All right, let's go on with the next technique then. So I'll get my die cutting machine back here. And I'm going to get another piece of white cardstock. And this time I am using the Art Deco folder. See, I'm making a folder, so I'm thinking of it as an embossing folder. It's not an embossing folder. It is a stencil, and we are embossing with stencils, but we're doing more than that. So letterpress is a big deal right now, right? A lot of people are liking letterpress. So I'm going to show you how you can use your stencil to do letterpress. And letterpress is where you actually press ink into the paper and the rest of the areas that don't have ink protrude. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so now we're going to tape this at the top. And again, I'm not worried because I'm going to end up cutting this down, but I'm making a folder once again. This way, everything's going to stay in place, especially because we're going to be doing letterpress this time. Okay, so you want to be able to keep this in place and you want it to line up. All right, so I'm going to show you what letterpress looks like when you use a stencil. Now, you can use a brayer with this if you want, but if you don't have a brayer, don't worry about it. You don't have to use a brayer. It's not that big of a deal. All right, let me move this out of the way. Let me get this back here so that you guys can see. Okay, so I am going to ink this up as if this was my die that I was pressing in, doing the letterpress thing. I'm going to use this instead, and I'm going to use charcoal brown. Okay, so let's see. All right, so I'm going to just ink this all up. See how I'm just rubbing the ink pad on here? I'm getting it nice and inky, and see how the ink is sticking pretty well on here? I really don't. Yes.
You might want to explain letterpress.
Letterpress? Okay. Didn't I just explain letterpress?
Well, yeah,
Somebody's asking?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so letterpress basically is when you have either a die or you have an embossing folder, or in this case, a stencil. And you ink up the stencil or the embossing folder or the die, and then you press that into the paper. So you kind of need a little bit of a squishy surface. You ink up the die, the embossing folder or the stencil, and then you press the color into the paper. That's what letterpress is. I'm using 80-pound white cardstock, so it's a little bit easier to emboss with this technique. I would use a lighter weight cardstock, but it's okay because you're going to mount it onto a card base anyway. But that's what letterpress is. Letterpress is pressing. It's from an old style of pressing letters into paper. So when people would do invitations, they would deboss and press the ink into the paper to create a texture, like you can feel it. But you know, if you want to do letterpress, you can do that with your stencils and you can do that with your embossing folders. And so let me ink this all up again because I think my ink kind of dried. All right, I want to make sure this is really inky. Now, some people like to use a brayer for this, and that's totally fine. You can do that if you want to. No problem. Now, I'm going to close this paper onto the stencil, okay? And then I'm going to get my contraption here. Same exact sandwich, my base plate, my rubber mat, and then my stencil, okay? And then I'm going to put my plate on top. And then to give it a little bit of extra pressure, I am going to use an extra piece of cardstock. I'm going to use a lighter piece. That last time that really got crinkled. Okay, and here we go. We're going to press that color into the paper. Now, the reason why I wanted you to tape this down is because, tape this down at the top, is because we can give it a second coat if it's not dark enough. But look at that. We've pressed the ink into the paper, and if you felt this, you would be able to feel that it's got the texture of that design too. Okay, so now we're going to do it a second time. We're going to ink that up again, give it another coat to really make it dark. Okay, all right, and we're going to lay that back on top, and we're going to send it through a second time. Same thing, same plates, just to make it a little bit darker, a little bit more solid. Yeah, it's pretty good, huh? It turns out pretty nice. But we're not done. We are not done.
Seems like a very stencible way to go about it.
Stencible. Is that the word of the day? Okay, I love it. All right, so now that's a little bit darker, and you can see that design in there. Okay, so now we're going to add some color to that. So let me just show you. I had done a small piece earlier to try this out, and here it is. So that is the letterpress, and you can see the design on the back, right? So you can see, I know you can't feel it, and that's what's sad, is you can't feel that the color is pressed in there, and then you can, oh yeah, it all washes off. I've used these stencils about 100 times today with all different colors, and I was able to clean them all and get them nice and new again. I do use the Gina K Design stamp cleaner. That does make a difference. Okay, so now I'm going to add some warm cocoa ink to this. I'm going to do this design, but now I'm going to do it with the letterpress. So I'm going to, just leaving the stuff right in there, I'm going to run this ink over the top. This is warm cocoa. And I'm just pressing a little bit to catch a little bit of ink, but you could see it's rustic looking. It looks like, you know, kind of like, I don't know, when you go downtown and you go to an old restaurant and they've got that original bathroom tile that's like from the Victorian era. I love that. Okay, and then I'm going to use a little faded brick because I want to get it a little more red. And you can use any colors you want. These are just suggestions. I'm going to do up here a little bit, even though I'm probably going to cut that off. I just want a little bit more color there. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to wipe that just because I'm going to use faded brick, and I kind of want to just get some of that color off the surface. And now I'm going to do the faded brick just a little bit in there. I want to add a little of that red. You could see the difference there when I add the red. And I thought this technique was really fun, especially because our new kit is vintage, right? So we've got all that vintage, all those vintage designs, and these kinds of patterns look so Victorian to me. I think they're so pretty. All right, so now we're going to remove the stencil, and we can see that we've got the letterpress in there, right? Got all the circles. See, normally when you do a stencil like this one, you can't get the circles, because the stencil covers where the circles are. So this is, you know, what the stencil would look like. But when you add the letterpress, you get all this cool dark color in there, and you really accent the stencil design. Okay, so now I'm going to use a little Kraft ink again, and this is where I'm going to fill in the rest of these circles. And again, I think it might have been Barbara that said you could use a brayer. Yes, you definitely can use a brayer here if you want, but you don't have to, because you can just rub on there and you'll get that same aged texture, but that's going to fill in all those other circles. See how it's starting to fill in a little bit more here? This isn't as imperative because you have the letterpress design on the outside, but I think it fills it in nicely. And I like the way the little triangles, I mean the little diamonds on the inside look when they're more filled in. Okay. And then, of course, we're going to add a little bit of ocean mist in here, because I think once you add that blue, you can't go wrong when you add a little bit of the blue in there. Look at that. It just ages everything so nicely. Okay, so now, remember when I told you that to wait until everything kind of, the smoothing agent kicked in? This is what the brick looks like now. And you see the difference, how it looks so turquoise here, but it looks a little bit more green and aged here. Yes, very vintage. So this is one style, and this is the style without the letterpress. But the letterpress is so cool. You have to try it. You just have to. It's super cool. So I'm going to trim this piece off to make it look a little bit nicer. And again, it's nice that we had, you know, that we could tape the top, because then we know it's going to be straight when we cut around. And I'm just cutting off the, you know, ugly edges. And then you can put these away. Like if you don't know what to make, just make a bunch of these and then just trim them up and put them away. And you've got some beautiful background papers to use on other cards down the line, right? Making your own pattern paper. It's just so beautiful and so Victorian. And of course, you got to try these in other colors. So don't just stick to all these warm tones. I mean, try them in the brighter colors and see what you get out of that. Because something that looks Victorian in these deep, you know, muted tones like this might look really fun in bright oranges and yellows and pinks. So I would definitely give it a try. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is how you might do something like this with more greenery effect. Let me look at the clock. I want to make sure I have time to get my one card in. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this and show you what this would look like. Then I've got one more to show you, and then I'm going to whip that card together. So this same thing, I want to get my tape. Where'd my tape go? Are you guys having fun? Is this like a cool technique or what? I am so excited about it. And honestly, if you just feel like getting inky, this is a really fun thing to do, and you don't need any special tools. You don't have to go out and buy anything tonight to do this. Just start rummaging around in your collection and see what stencils you have, and just tape them to some cardstock and get them through your die cutting machine and start inking. It's fun. It's super fun. Okay, so there, I made my little folder again. Now I'm going to emboss this one first, and this one is really beautiful, just embossed too. A lot of these are, they're very lovely. I don't think you got to see this one embossed because we went right in for letterpress, but I'm going to show you this one embossed first. Okay, so again, I've got the rubber mat here, and that's giving it the extra squish. If you don't put the rubber mat in, it's not going to emboss. You really need something to squish down. And this mat is by Spellbinders. So if you have the Spellbinders machine, you can get the mat. I know the old Cuttlebug had a rubber mat, and I'm sure the Big Shot has a rubber mat. I think they all do. Okay, and here we go. We're going to send this one through. Okay. Alrighty. So let's take a look. And again, you can do this twice. Like if you don't think it's deep enough, go back and add another piece of cardstock. But see that beautiful pattern in there? I think our camera's kind of bright, but I think you can see it. They can see that, right, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to go a second time here. I'm going to double emboss it because I think I would like it to be a little bit deeper. So I'm going to use my other piece of cardstock, this one that I scrunched up here. This is a little bit heavier. This is layering weight. This is heavy weight. So if you don't get a deep enough emboss, definitely go for the heavy weight. Okay. Yeah, just go through your stuff and see what you have. It works so great with those background stencils. And they're super fun just as stencils, but it's really awesome to have another use for them. Okay, so there we go. Now we've got that nice texture in there. And that would be beautiful on the back of a card. You can feel it. It's lovely. But let's have at it. Let's ink her up and see what happens. So leaving the stencil on there. Remember, you always want to leave the stencil on there for the first pass. And I'll use a little warm cocoa for this. And I'm going to just run that through. I don't think anything's getting in there. I don't think anything's getting in there. All right, so we'll take it off and a little bit. We're going to go straight away right onto the leaves. I'll try some Kraft. This is a really delicate design. Oh, yes, there we go. Look at that. That is so fun. I couldn't remember what I did with each of these. You got to try it different ways. With the bigger openings, you can definitely get some of the ink in there. With the smaller designs like this, you definitely want to go with, just with the ink direct on there. But that is so pretty. All right, let's add more colors. I don't want to mix those up. Okay, I'm going to add some green on that. So we'll do some jelly bean on top and green it up a little bit. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to add turquoise because I add turquoise to everything. That is so pretty. And it's so different than the stenciled look. It's just different. And if you don't believe me, definitely try it and then try it because you might look at it and go, that looks just like stenciling. Go ahead and stencil your stencil and see it looks completely different. Okay, and then a little ocean mist on there. Oh, I love that. That makes it look very kind of emeraldy. All right, so we'll give that a second. Let me peel this off. And I'm just peeling the tape and leaving it on there. All of these are going to go in the sink. I'll clean them with Gina K stamp cleaner, and they will be just fine. All right, let's trim this up. I like this one. I feel like this one would be really good for just if you needed a little strip going down the side of your card. They all feel very batik-y to me. Let me trim that a little more. Here we go. And here's the other one I did, and I didn't use as much blue in this one. I used a little more of the Kraft. And you can see, so this one's got a little deeper, and this one looks a little bit more yellow. Love that. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do one more thing. We are going to do a floral design or a leafy design. We're going to do letterpress, but we're going to wood grain the letterpress. So like I said, if you want to use a brayer, you can, but I'm a texture girl. I love the texture that these stencils bring. That these techniques bring. So let me find the stencil that I wanted to use. I think I threw it way in the back here. Here it is, this one. I want to do this one because Tom said this one reminds him of his favorite restaurant in Florida. So I got to do this for Tom. Okay, so I am going to get a piece of white cardstock, and I'm cutting these down to 6 by 6 so that they're pretty close to the same size as the stencil. Okay. And then we're going to do a little hinge thing again so that we can do our letterpress like we did with this one. And then we can go back and stencil right on top. Love this one. Okay, so again, I'm going to line that up, and then I'm going to get look at my fingers. This is when you know you're having fun, when your fingers are all inky. Tom's favorite restaurant in Florida. What is it, Tom? Well, it's one of his favorites. It's a place that we go to a lot when we're down there. What is it, Tom? Share it. Give him a shout out.
That would be Pops.
Yes.
Pops down in
Nokomis.
Right on the beach.
Yep.
Right it's by the beach.
Pops Sunset Grill. They have live music. They've got great food. They've got a cute little store, and it's right on the water. Okay. You don't have to dress up, which is super fun. All right, so here we go now. We're going to first, let me get my things here and move this out of the way. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add ink. But instead of adding ink, you know, in a kind of a delicate brary way, we're going to wood grain on here. So I'm going to use the large ink pad here, and I'm going to just do some wood grain strokes right down there. Okay. Now I'm going to do a little bit of darker in here. I haven't tried this before, but I think I'm going to try adding a little bit of dark in here. I feel like this, I'm not worried about the dark, the light going into the dark, but I think that's going to add more wood grain to it. Okay. So we're going to lay that on top. Can you see how pretty that is already? Okay, let me get my machine in here. Okay. Put that down onto the rubber mat. And then I'm going to put that all the way in. I do. I'm going to use my lighter weight cardstock, and I'm going to run this through. Pops gets 4.5 stars. Awesome. My paper cutter is a little We Are Memories paper cutter. I use it all the time because it's really just easy to use. I'm going to go through one more time just to be sure. I am excited. The dark color was charcoal brown. So I had warm cocoa and charcoal brown on top. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I felt like I just needed the extra. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but look at that. Can you see the wood? Ooh, I love that. Look at that wood grain back there. So again, this is called letterpress. So you're actually pressing the color, and then this design is all pressed forward. So your ink is actually sinking down into this. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some Kraft ink in here to try to fill in these areas. I don't want to add the same browns. I want to go a little lighter because I don't want to lose that texture that I just created. I love that texture. But I'm going to add a little bit of Kraft ink in here. Now, here's where, if you wanted to, you could clean your stencil because this is a darker ink. So you can just take your tidy towel and just clean that up. Get that ink off of there. Let's flip that around. Doesn't it look like wood? It's so awesome. I love it. Okay, let me clean this up because you know I'm going to get my paper all wet if I don't clean it up right. Okay. So you can't get that look. I mean, there's no way to get the parts of the stencil that are closed. There's just no way. You've eaten it, Pops? Oh, it's so good. I love it there. I always get their Pops salad with the white balsamic vinegar, and I add shrimp. And then I always get, no, I don't add shrimp because I get the fried shrimp. Oh, it's delicious. Okay, so now if you wanted to use a brayer for this part, you could, but I'm just, adding a bunch of ink here. And you can just press that ink down into all those other areas. And remember, because you have this little hinge, you're going to nail the right spot, so you don't have to worry about it not lining up. As long as nothing moved. I hope it didn't, but we'll see. Okay, and this is just adding a little bit of extra color in there. Okay, looking good. And I'm going to letterpress this in. Okay. Here we go. And then I'm going to add a little color to this stencil without taking the stencil off. What is the dead space? Oh, I see. Okay. One more. We'll go through. Okay. And let's see what we got. Then I think I can make a card out of that other one because we have time. All right, so I think that just added, it filled in a little bit of the color in there, a little bit closer. Like some of these spots in here that were a little white, it added a little bit of ink. Okay, now let's add some color because this is the part that reminded Tom of Pops. I think it's just the color combination that reminded him of Pops. So I'm going to use some Jelly Bean Green and Turquoise Sea. Let me get my ink stand. So I'll start with the green. And I'm also going to, you know what else I'm going to use? I'm going to use Wild Dandelion for this too. All right, stencil is still on. I'm not moving the stencil. So now I'm going to add some green in here. Haven't even done any stenciling with these stencils since I got on here tonight. Feels good. Okay. Get a lot of green because they are leaves. Okay. Now I'm going to add some Turquoise Sea. What's a Gruben, Tom? What's going on? Did I miss something?
Someone mentioned the grouper Reuben at Pops.
Oh. And that's a Gruben? That's great.
Arguably.
All right, so you can see my Turquoise Sea getting all in there. And then we're really going to make it vibrant by adding a little bit of Wild Dandelion over some of that green. Let's get a little more in here. Okay. Now, what's nice is all of these colors, you can go over any parts and nothing gets muddy. But if we add a little Wild Dandelion in here, this just makes it glow a little more. See how it starts to almost light up? It's like the sun shining on the leaves when you see that. Okay. Maybe a little bit right in here. We can use a little sun in there. Okay. Right in here. Can't stop. All right, so let's see what this looks like now with that cool wood grain behind it. Isn't that cool? I love that look. It looks so three-dimensional. And what's really neat about this is I know we have our stencil mates that have the black outlines, but if you look really close at this, every single one of these leaves is outlined in charcoal brown. And that's because of the letterpress. It just pressed ink. It's like a mix of charcoal brown or a mix of charcoal brown and the warm cocoa. Because the letterpress, because it pushed down and pushed that paper up, that ink just pooled around the outside of every single one of those, and it just gives it such great detail. So yes, this stencil is still available. This is called, oh my goodness, somebody help me. Somebody tell me what this stencil is called. I can't remember. Isn't that terrible? I have such a bad memory, guys. But somebody will look it up. I know they will. And I'll see it fly up on the screen because I know somebody. Is this thick? This isn't thick brush. Thick brush is different. I'm going to trim this down. Oh, Lush Leaves. Thank you, guys. Lush Leaves. So you can count on this community. I'm telling you right now. You guys are the best. Okay, so Lush Leaves. Isn't that a gorgeous tropical background? You could totally see stuff like this too for scrapbook pages if you like doing scrapbook pages. I also tried one with this bold bloom earlier. I didn't do much stenciling to the flower. I just wanted to see how it looked. And I thought it looked pretty cool. And when Tom saw both of these, he was like, oh my gosh, that's Pops. I feel like I'm sitting at Pops. So you can do this with your bigger, bold stencils too. with the wood grain, but I really like the way the wood grain on this one turned out with the two colors. I love that. Okay, so why don't we put a little piece of this into action? So these are the ones that we made tonight, right? This one. And then I had made that one earlier and this one earlier to try. I just want everybody to see everything. Here's a lighter version of the leaves. And this one has a little less green. So I was just playing with a bunch of different colors now. And here's just the letterpress by itself. If you just wanted the background design, but no stenciling done. Okay, so I'm going to push this aside because what I've done here, I really need to wash my hands. I'm nervous because I'm going to start touching a card now. And I want to give this card away. So let me just clean. I've got my tidy towels. I just washed all of these and I just stuck them in this little container. So we'll just put this away. Okay, so now what I've done here is I cut one of the panels down. This is the Master Layouts 2 size. You could cut this with Master Layouts 2. It would give you that little stitched edge. I think we could probably cut, is this one bigger? We could cut this one or the one we made tonight even. I could cut that out. See how they're all different too? This one has a little bit more blue. This one's a little more green. This one has a little less, but they all look like bricks to me. I'm going to stick with this one. I don't have to recut it. And then I cut out a panel in charcoal brown to go behind it. So I'm going to tape, oops, excuse my boob getting in there. Okay, I'm going to just let it fly tonight. I'm going to tape this down onto this charcoal brown panel. And of course I needed to do something vintage tonight because my 5-minute card video was very tropical, but you did get a little tropical tonight. And then here is, let me do this the right way tonight. There we go. Here is an ivory card base and I'm just going to put that right on there. Doesn't that just look so pretty? So Tom, I've seen that you've done a couple words of the day. Do you actually have a word of the day? Or are those all your words of the day? Are you worded out?
Might be pushing my luck here.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know if we did this one before, but we I'll give it a shot just in case anybody missed it.
Okay.
This is a little bit bawdy, I guess you'd call it.
Body?
Like a really bad somebody makes a very insincere attempt at saying they're sorry. That's a crapology. Right? We've all gotten those.
Yeah.
We probably gave a few of those.
Yeah, it's not really sincere.
All right, I'm sorry. That's crapology.
Crapology.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a good one.
Also be the study of like flea market stuff, or I don't know. Pushing my luck back into the dead space.
Okay. Well, I'm going to use these dies tonight. And what I've done here is I've cut a medium size double stitch rectangle and a medium size single stitch rectangle. I cut this out of ivory and this out of charcoal brown. So this is going to be like a window. And I know this card, all I can say is for nature, this card is not going to be anatomically correct, but I think it's going to be cute. So we're going to go with it. Anatomically correct window. It's not going to be right. And I have a window die that would be perfect, but I also think this is just cute. And this is something that even if you don't have these dies, you can do this card. So we're just going to stick to the basics tonight. So I'm going to just tape this down and I'm going to use one more stencil, this Sea, Sun, and Sky stencil. And I'm going to create some little clouds going down using the Ocean Mist. What did I do with my inkstand? Here she is. Okay. Now I do have a bunch of Turquoise Sea on this brush, so I want to clean it off a little bit. I'm just going to rub the excess off. Oh my God, crapology. Okay. Honestly, this card is just a quick card at the end because tonight's video was really about those techniques. But it'll still turn out cute. All right, so we're gonna add a little cloud cover here, like that. And then I'm gonna move it over this way. We're hoping for some days that look like this again soon here in Wisconsin. Okay. So you can see I'm just building these clouds right down this window. Big puffy clouds in the sky. And I'm using ocean mist because there is ocean mist in those bricks and it's a nice complementary color. And I'm doing most of my ink blending on the stencil, and again, just letting those bristles trickle over the edge. This way I'm not filling in all the white because you want to be able to see the white. And then when I get to the bottom here, I'll just fill this in, and that'll finish it off. And I'll fill it in at the top and a little bit on the sides. So there's my clouds. Can you see that? Okay. I'll definitely post everything in this group. The stencil that I just used is called Sea, Sun, and Sky. So it's got the sky up here. It's got waves that you can make the ocean, and then it's got the sun. And if you want to see how to use this, watch my 5-minute card video for Friday. I used this to create a sea. And here's the card I made using the sea. So you can see I added some movement there in the water. Rather than just having straight water going across, when you add those little lines, you kind of sense the movement of the ocean. So I use this to do the clouds and the water. All right, back to my vintage card. Okie dokie. So Tom,
putting some riptides in there?
Yeah, did you see the crossing of the water? They were the riptides. Okay, so I'm gonna put this onto this charcoal brown panel. This is not really a window, but it's going to feel like a window.
Susan would like to know, does it matter when you use the cloud if you go from top down or bottom up?
It's meant to go in this direction. If you go this way, your clouds will look upside down. The puffiness should be toward the top. So it still will look good, but honestly, it was designed to be used that way. So I would use it that way. Okay, so now we have our little window here that we're going to put onto the brick wall. And then I already cut out a bike, and I just colored the greenery here. And I thought I would add the bike to like right here, off to the side a little bit. And then I would pop my greeting right onto this window. Okay, so I'm going to put my greeting on. But let's see here. I'm going to put my greeting on last because I love stressing myself out and giving myself massive panic attacks. So come join me. All right. So I'll put the window right in the middle here. That really does look like brick, doesn't it, Tom?
It looks like brick.
And then I'm going to leave the bike here, but then I'm going to pop the bike up. So I don't want to pop it up yet because I'm going to be putting my greeting on there. Let's back out a little bit. For those of you watching on an 85-inch screen, this Misty is like the size of your refrigerator. Okay.
What color did you stamp the bike?
Charcoal brown. I kind of use charcoal brown for most of these cards that I've made. I feel like it's a good brown for a vintage card, and it's almost black, so it's pretty good. And then the greeting that I want to use is life's a journey, enjoy the ride, and I'm going to slip it right there. So I'm going to keep it low, kind of down near the bike. instead of doing it too high. This way we can kind of see those clouds. Okay, and I got to make sure that's straight. I think it's going to be straight. Everything looks crooked to me. I've got paper under here that's crooked. I've got the Misty crooked on the screen. Okay, but you know me. I got to check it first. I got to make sure it's right. So I'm going to pick it up, keeping that in place. And I'm going to do my little test here with my acetate sheet. This is the sheet from my stamp set. And I'm going to ink it up with that charcoal brown again. And I'm just going to look at it and make sure it's straight. I got to just see it first. Does that look straight? Excuse my head. Life's a journey. Enjoy the ride. Let me just see if I turn it a little bit. Will I like it better? Yes, I will like it better if I turn it just a little. So I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to attempt a second time here. Just going to clean this right off the acetate. I know that was very scary to see me do that. So make sure that's in place and the acetate is going here. And then my fingers are a little sticky, so I'm going to just use a little bit of this powder on them, and that's going to let me touch the stamp. It won't stick to me quite as bad. Okay, so I got to put this back here so I know where the bike is supposed to be. And then I'm going to get this down here, and it sticks so much easier to the acetate too. So you can always put your acetate on there, and it'll help you position it a little bit, actually. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm so unable to go straight here. All right, one more time. Check it. Get everything back in place. It's too much work to do the greeting and screw it up, especially if I'm sending this to one of you. I think that looks good. Probably doesn't look any different after all of that, but you know, I'm humoring myself here, thinking I'm working extra hard. Okay, so I've got this in place, and I'm going to do 2 light stampings on this because it's a delicate greeting. So if I do 2 light stampings rather than squish it down, it won't lose, you know, that pretty font. I can even do one more. Okay. Life's a journey. Enjoy the ride. And then this bike is going to go right here like that. I love the bike offset. That was Tom's idea. I think you said to offset the window, but I ended up offsetting the bike. Pretty close, right? Tom, you still there?
Looks delightful.
Okay. So I'm going to pop this up. And let's see, I'm going to pop it up just, it's pretty shallow. So I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference whether it's popped up on here or on the, you know, on this part or on this part. It's pretty close. If it was really drastic, I would probably put 2 squares at the top and 1 at the bottom as far as doubling up, but I got to cut that off because that's going to stick off the side. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of interesting lift there. I feel like it needed that. So this is a very tiny little card, just a simple little card. It would be a great birthday card. You could put a birthday sentiment inside. And one more time. You know what Tom offered to do? He offered to fussy cut all around the spokes for me if I wanted to cut this out. And although that was a very generous offer, I just couldn't have him do it, but it probably would have looked better. But there we go. Life's a journey. Enjoy the ride. And I kind of like seeing the extra clouds up there. That just makes me happy. All right, Tom, what do you think of this card?
Oh boy. It's got a bike in it. That's a big, big card for me.
Right.
I'm a bike person.
You are. All right, so one more time, we'll look at these. Here's the brick wall. Here is the Letterpress Art Deco. Here is the one that I can never remember the name. Somebody say it again. Here is the Leafy. Here is just the plain old letterpress.
I think you had a premonition of what the bike would have looked like if I fussy cut it.
Yeah, I know that wouldn't have. That would not have been Lush Leaves. Thank you guys again. See, I can't remember anything, but I appreciate that you can, or that at least you can look it up. Yeah, I did not.
I would have used one of those like scalpel tools.
Oh, like an X-Acto knife?
Yes.
A scalpel tool. And then this one I didn't show being made, but it was a test that I did earlier, so I don't know about that one.
Wow.
Okay, so here's the card, Tom. Let's give her away.
Sorry, I didn't have my mic up.
Oh, you didn't? The whole time?
No, just the last.
Okay.
It wasn't that great. So, okay. So we're giving away cards?
We're giving this card
This
away.
card.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, cheesy drum roll, please. Big giveaway. Let's give it to Shelly Marks Moniz.
Yay, Shelly, congratulations. Okay, Shelly, all you have to do is send your name and address to info@GinaKDesigns.com, and we will get that right out to you. Well, everybody, this was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed this technique. I hope you thought it was as much of a wow as I did, and that you'll give it a try because it is so fun to do. Now, Tom and I will be back on Thursday with another Crafternoon Live, 12 o'clock Central Time. So we hope you'll join us for that. And I will be back over the weekend with another 5-minute card video. I'm going to post that on Friday. Now, I do want you to know that Tom and I will not be here on Tuesday. It's 4th of July. We know a lot of you have plans, and we're going to go out, probably get on our bikes and go maybe sneak downtown to see some fireworks if there's any around. I don't know, but we're going to take the day off. So no live next Tuesday night, but then we will be back again on Thursday for Crafternoon. So we'll see you this Thursday at noon Central Time. And in the meantime, stay safe and healthy. We love you all so very much. And mwah, we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.